Okay. There is a lot to get into today.
There is.
Live. Yeah, the dude always. Whoa. That is not. That is not it. It's like, wait a minute.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm about to share it.
Oh, Nadim was the first one in today. What was it?
I feel like Nadim, I feel like that person is always there.
Right? Hey, what happens when you have your notifications turned on?
Okay, Nadim, I see you.
Unless you be knowing that we're gonna be on time and not show up late, but you know.
Hey, we on time today, right on time.
Oh, Jolyn. First off, hold up, wait a minute. We need to talk about something because are you having a party over there and didn't even invite me? Like, what is going on?
I just had to turn up just a little extra one time because somebody makes me want to ride out on them. Okay. Your boy.
No, that is your friend.
Nah, bruh. Like, I just cannot. We'll get into it.
You got it over there like a Studio 54.
I had to turn up the vibes, you know. I was feeling like it, you know what it is. The other day I was talking to one of my friends and we were talking about songs that remind us instantly of house parties. And there's two songs that really just bring it back. So one is Sugar Hill by AZ. And then the other one is Ain't Nothing But a Gangsta Party. So that's kind of like,
Well, wait. Gangster Party gives you a disco ball feeling? I mean, this this is a house party though. House party. Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know if they're gonna have that going on with the disco ball in the club, but
yo, I will see walk all up and through. Okay.
Well, hey, there it is.
There it is.
Hello, everybody. This is Mark Monroe, and I am accompanied by
Jolyn DC.
All right, so we have an action-packed, jam-packed episode for you today. And, we're going to try not to be shady today, but things have been going on in which that, taking place. But either way, the title of this video is called Spoiler Alert for a reason. But let's just get some housekeeping out of the way. If you're not subscribed, and it's been officially 60 days now, I mean, I think it's time for the side eye. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
I mean, no. Let's just bring
it. Mark, where'd you get those shades?
The only place where the shady side is up.
Hey.
Anyway, but if you haven't subscribed, we got to know why not. I mean, go ahead and drop a comment in there. We'd love to know. If you like the video, though that we're just now getting started, but you know how we do. And if you know in typical fashion and how we do here at the Come Up, then go ahead and let's just get the housekeeping taken away. Go ahead and hit the like button. We'd love that. We totally would appreciate that. But if you want to definitely say, okay, hey, you have to earn that value, then by all means, we have no problem with that. Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. And if you want to be in the know for when we're going to drop a video, because you never know. Something can drop tomorrow. It could drop on a Saturday. It could drop on a Sunday or a Monday. You never know. So it's like, we don't post our posting schedule up there. So you just have to be in the know. So go ahead and hit that notification bell so that way you can be a part of the squad. All right. So I got that out of the way.
All right. My turn.
Go ahead. Drop it like it's hot, DJ.
All right. You set it up. I knock it down. All right. So, we already know today was red. I have to put on red for y'all because today was a red day. But you know whose fault that was. We were doing pretty good this morning. You already know, side stock bay, NVIDIA did its thing, okay? Well, what's interesting now is I can't with you, Mark, as I'm starting to see, the true potential, which I already peeped game, but as I'm starting to see NVIDIA's true potential, Some things are shifting. As you all know, SMH and I, we broke up. We're still cool. That's the homie for life. But, as you get up in things, see, butter already knows.
He even got butter like all up in arms.
Butter's up there. He's like, how could you do that? But after a while, you will shift from an ETF being, one of your stock base to a whole stock. But
wait, hold on, because we ain't gonna let you off that easy. Hold up, wait a minute, hold up. Jolyn.
Yes.
There is some serious explaining that needs to be done here, because clearly we went from Taylor and Wags, and then all of a sudden it was just like, why can't we be friends? I mean, it's just like, it's over. All of a sudden, it's just like, gone.
I wasn't expecting to go public. NVIDIA and I were like keeping things cool. I wasn't expecting to go public. And then I was talking to Tesla. You all know that NVIDIA was somewhat public, but I wasn't expecting to go public about your Wags, AKA my stock crush Tesla, which, as you all know, the hints were there. They've been there. We've talked about this. I have a whole account named after Tesla. So we've talked about this. But we weren't ready to go public yet. And now we are,
So is this your red table moment? Is this what we're trying to say here?
No.
Okay.
That's not what we're doing.
Oh, so we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that. That's just a preview, because there's so much more. There's so many details behind all that, like how it all came to be. But, we'll talk more about that later. But speaking of red, let's get back to the market. So the Dow was negative. Is that a shady sip? Anyway, the Dow was negative 375.88 points. Then we have S&P 500 negative 47.68 points, and the NASDAQ almost down by 200 points, but coming in at negative 177.88 points. Now, for sector performance, we have utilities coming in first, consumer staples, followed by real estate. Then in the bottom three, we have tech, communication services, and consumer discretionary. Now, for our picks, we have Twilio, which was 52-week high today, a new one. And then we have NVIDIA was number 2. NVIDIA remains strong, but I could talk all day about NVIDIA, so we ain't gonna do that right now. And then Hack. And then our bottom 3 was Datadog, Square, and Best Buy. But what's interesting is even though we had Datadog and Square at the bottom, they actually had a 52-week high as well.
Okay.
So we had 3 52-week highs on this list, even in a red market. So
yeah, it's like, and then the beat dropped.
Right. It just dropped. It was silent. I looked left, I looked right. I was like, what's going on? What was going on? And then all you could hear were thumbs.
That was just like somebody like, that was like the equivalent of somebody saying like they're not invited to play like Foursquare or kickball with the rest of the kids. So they took the ball and just went home.
They just left. But I mean, even though the market is still crazy, we are doing some pretty cool things, Mark.
Yes.
So we have an announcement about these nonprofits, So I went through the list of all the nonprofits so far since we've been on YouTube that we've had, your super chat dollars are going to. So we have Life Enrichment Group, Greenwood Project, the Bridge Eco Village, People's School for Positive Education, Black Mental Health Alliance, and Operation Reach Back. And would you like to share what we're going to do?
I think so. I mean, so we have officially reached the end of this season. So I think season 1, I think this could be the finale for season 1 for the Come Up series. And with that being said, we pretty much reached the end, and not the end of the Come Up series. So I'm down. I mean, everybody.
Turn this off.
So we reached the end of the season for what we're saying of going for nonprofits, because we wanted to do something special for this season's nonprofits. And what we're going to do is, from now until the end of the year, we're going to trade on behalf of those nonprofits, so that way we can increase what your dollars have brought to the table, and to increase them so that way by December comes around, they can get something much larger. So there you have it.
Yes, that's exciting, because we could really take that money and do something with it that will benefit all those nonprofits even more. So it's a joint effort, y'all. We couldn't have done it without you. So Life Enrichment gets a burner, Greenwood gets a burner, The Bridge gets a burner, People's School for Positive Education gets a burner, Black Mental Health Alliance gets a burner, Operation Reach Back gets a burner. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for season 2 and what those nonprofits will look like. But we definitely saw that each and every single one of these organizations do some pretty cool stuff, and they're super duper dope. And so we wanted to take your dollars and maximize that to the highest level, and also include Jolyn's brain and my brain, and then, well, you guys are already writing it in the comments, but make it super duper lit. So that's exactly what we're doing. So that way, essentially, we want to make sure that they get the most of your dollars, and a part of that is putting those dollars to work, just like what we say. And then at the very end, when it's time to make those transfers, we'll go ahead and let you know exactly what was donated in December. That's going to be fun. I can't wait.
Really fun. Like, you know what we should do, Mark? We should tally all the super chat dollars, so we know what we started off with, and then boom, the end amount.
Done. We'll have the come up series posted.
Sounds good.
Okay, so just as a heads up, so if you're putting capital into the super chats today, then it's just going to go added to the account, so that way we can make that money work for those nonprofits. So, all right, so where do we get started? Because I guess I should talk about first, just let the cat out of the bag, since we had somebody with Twitter fingers earlier today, and just talk about that for a quick second. So a lot of you are probably asking, okay, hey, what's going to go on with stimulus? How does that affect my existing portfolio? What is it that we have to look for? Here's my thing. The stimulus has already, if I'm not correct, if I am correct, I think it's already passed the House. So now it's just awaiting on behalf of the Senate, if I'm correct, because they passed a 2.2 or 2.4 plan. 2.2. So now it's on its way to the Senate. And so I guess, is the Senate going to just immediately block it? Just saying, hey, that this is an automatic no? I mean,
you're trying to take a break, Mark. Half the Senate got the COVID. They're trying to close down sessions now.
This COVID is rated E for everyone. It is literally showing that it's E for everyone. But so here's my take on things. So in my perspective, I think that somebody may have to potentially walk that back, because it's not only just Democrats that need that stimulus, it's also Republicans and independents that need those stimulus dollars for their small businesses, and even just for their families, for folks in which that are laid off. I mean, that's huge. And I think the market overreacted because of the fact that it was negative news and unexpected. I don't think that was people. I think that was just essentially markets immediately just going risk off. So you saw a bunch of trading algorithms that literally just kicked in and just said, oh, okay, well, Cooling the Gang was like, yo, let's wrap this up. Show's over for the day. And that's where you saw that the market overreacted to that point. And then I think it dropped all the way down to 205 at the lowest, or 210. And then NASDAQ, and then it came all the way back up. I think it was 177, 133, within that range. So that's kind of letting you know that essentially that algorithms kicked in, and then essentially there was retail and some institutional investors that also played along. But for the most part, I think it was just all algorithmic trading. You're probably that's giving you an early glimpse, spoiler alert, for what's going to possibly take place during the election. So since you've gone through this before and you've seen this happen, don't be surprised when you see that the futures market reacts the way it does. Now, it's giving you multiple times to show you what the futures or what algorithms can do when so-and-so caught COVID. And then also when that same so-and-so wanted to just go ahead and said, hey, since I can't talk to nobody, since nobody wants to stand around me, let me just go ahead and type something. And you saw it happen again. So now there's no reason to essentially act nervous or to essentially try to not stick to the script. You'll be fine. In the long run, you'll be fine. I think the best, okay, just for the sake of it, I'll give everybody some homework for this evening. When you think about what happened when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I want you to go back and research what happened to the market when he got assassinated, and then what happened to the market a few days later. That's everybody's homework for this evening. So,
okay.
All right. So what's next? I mean, because we got action-packed day.
We do, and I'm looking at comments, cracking up, trying not to like just fall over right now. Y'all are hilarious. Someone said you look like Eazy-E, Mark.
Come on now. See on that one.
I like Eazy-E. What? Okay, so y'all. Okay, so Mark, we have a couple of things. One, yeah. I'm trying to think. What is the best? There's so much to cover today.
There's a lot. I guess today's episode is all about how do you look into the future, though?
Yes, crystal ball.
All right, so we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So today is all about looking into the future. But for those of you that have been also hearing news about like, you know, monopoly and wanting me to follow up on like some of those companies that have gotten ridiculously large and do some reporting on it. Okay, sure, let's do it. All right, so first things first, let's look at the Big Five, AKA the largest acquisitions by tech company. So when we think about it now, this report was done back in 2018. So please do not try to crucify me in the comment section like, Mark, you know, 4.4 trillion. I'm probably guessing that they're worth more since Microsoft's worth $1 trillion. Amazon's definitely worth $1 trillion. Apple's worth like almost $2 trillion. So that kind of like racks it up for them. And then on top of that, Facebook and Alphabet are definitely doing their damage. And I think that Alphabet is also, if not worth close to $1 trillion, it is worth $1 trillion. I mean, give or take market movement. All right, so when we think about it, they're definitely known as powerful, right? They pretty much, when they move, then essentially the rest of the tech space moves. I mean, that's how it's always been. I mean, when you have a market leader, others follow. They're not exempt from this either. So when we look at it by acquisitions, though, in 2018, Alphabet had 236 acquisitions, Facebook had 79, Apple had 109, Amazon had 85, and Microsoft had 225. So it's kind of like this whole mantra where everybody's looking into saying, okay, well, are these companies too big? You know, are they taking well advantage of other, you know, the other little fish in the sea? But, you know, technically it's up to those companies if they want to sell. This is a heads up. Nobody's putting a gun to their head and telling them that they need to sell their company. They can keep doing what they're doing. But I mean, to a certain degree, some people say that it could be a little bit anti-competitive. I mean, wherever you fall in the spectrum of things, that's on you. And, you know, hopefully your research also takes hold to give you some light of this. But for the sake of this conversation, let's go through it. Because acquisitions also help shape the future of what tech will be. Just want you to keep that in mind. So first company that we want to look at is, let's say, Microsoft. Now, I guess I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit here. So Microsoft, over the course period of time from 2007 to, let's say, 2018, Microsoft has, I guess it was worth up to $1 trillion in 2018. So I'm probably guessing it's worth a little bit more. But here are the history of its acquisitions. A quantitative or quantive, Skype, Nokia, LinkedIn, and GitHub. So I'm going to quickly go through some of these just so that way we can brush upon it, and then we'll kind of tie it all together. So when you think about it, Aquantive was a digital marketing and technology services company. Skype is telecommunications. Nokia is multinational telecommunications company that was essentially struggling. I mean, the last time we actually talked about Nokia was really when people were still playing Snake on their phone. Just for them.
Oh, yeah, you brought it back.
But they had a lot, but they did have a lot of patents though. So just something to keep in mind. They had a ton of patents, but they were just a struggling company, and so they were sold. LinkedIn was definitely and still is the kind of like the golden standard for social networking for careers. I know a little bit of something about that given my past in startup world. And on top of that, you have GitHub, which is known for source code management. So pretty much devs, when they write code or when they source it, it pretty much sits on a platform like GitHub. Now, LinkedIn was its largest acquisition and I think it's actually the largest acquisition out of all of the big five, just as a heads up. So when we put it into perspective, that pretty much when we look at it, if you think about where we're seeing Microsoft today, look at the trajectory of where it came to. You have Aquantive, you have Skype, you have Nokia, LinkedIn, and GitHub. Now, if we remove GitHub just as a simple example, right? If you look at these platforms like Nokia, Skype, and Aquantive, they kind of built something that was pretty cool. And that thing that was pretty cool is what we know of today as Microsoft Teams. Like, if you really think about it, that is super duper dope. Because think about like what Skype is, what it was, and what it has become. Hold on for a second. Seriously? Okay, well, that was awkward. So when we think about it, Microsoft Teams has literally been able to propel Microsoft into the future. And how do we know that? Anybody who's seen the TV show Black Mirror on Netflix, remember when you had all these people performing on stage to a bunch of screens? Please enlighten us. What today are we seeing happening that's kind of entertaining to folks, and where you don't see people in the crowds, but you see a bunch of screens with people in them? Just saying. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on from this one, because if you guess the NBA, then congratulations, WWE, if bonus points. All right, so let's look at Amazon. So when we think about Amazon, right, here are all the acquisitions from 2009 to 2018. We have Zappos, which, I mean, many of the folks knew that Zappos was known for its shoes, but its e-commerce platform was pretty dope. Then they bought Twitch, which is for video game platforms and community. Then Whole Foods, pretty much multinational supermarket chain, except the expensive supermarket chain. Then you have PillPack, and then you have Ring. Now, when you think about it, Amazon, their acquisitions kind of like look a little bit all over the place, but let's do a deep dive. Well, if you look at what Zappos was and what it provided to Amazon, it really helped put Amazon into a whole new stratosphere when it started bringing in its revenue through Amazon.com, which we'll probably go a little bit deeper on these 5 companies probably on Thursday or maybe next week. You never know. And then when you look at Twitch, I mean, it pretty much competes against YouTube for video game streaming and everything else. So if we remove those two, right? Mm-hmm. When you think about Whole Foods and what that has become. So actually, I'm not going to forget that. Twitch, if you think about it, it's like the modern day broadcasting of what gaming is today. So when we think about esports gaming and everything else, that is a huge market. And I believe that it's going to go even further. And we've seen that given that COVID-19 has taken place, esports gaming was really, really huge. When we look at Whole Foods and what they've done, I mean, think about it. If you take something that's known for its e-commerce, if it's e-commerce strategy, and then bring that into the forefront, look at what they're doing as it pertains to innovating with the actual brick and mortar store. I mean, for those that live in Seattle, you understand that there's this thing called Amazon Go. So with Amazon Go is you can walk into a store and literally just pick up whatever it is that you need and then just walk out without having to say anything to a register or speak to a cashier or anything like that. You just get in and then leave. Then you also have something called Amazon Prime Now. And with Amazon Prime Now, that's even dope because of the fact that it allows you to get groceries within an hour and 2 hours. I mean, just think about how that's really just changed the game and how Amazon has had a huge footprint in there. Now, PillPack, we kind of don't have an idea of what it's going to be, but I mean, when we think about it, I mean, accelerated its entry into healthcare. We know that that's going to be competing against places like CVS and Walgreens. I think, in my perspective, they're going to use PillPack and tie that into some form of a subscription service. Just a little hypothetical hunch. Somebody is really beeping. Is that me or is that you?
That's me.
Oh, okay. So then we also have Ring. Now, for anybody that's saying Ring, I mean, think about the doorbells and well, the doorbells and security and everything else. And then as of just recently, they brought in in-home drones, which comes out, I think, if not the end of this year or sometime next year, where essentially a drone is able to literally survey through your home, just in case if it notices that there's some type of break-in or unauthorized entry, where you now have drones that survey, and that's huge. But we're going to get into that a little bit later, so I don't want to give too much of a spoiler there, but you're kind of getting an idea of where we're going with this, hopefully. If you haven't yet, stay tuned. Now let's look at Alphabet. The reason why we're talking about the big five is because at the same token that they're large, they're also helping shape the future of what will be. So when we think about Alphabet, let's go all the way back to 2006, where they started off with YouTube, where it was just simply where people could just post videos about, I guess, their cats and stuff like that, and look at what it's become today. I mean, hell, look at us. We're here on YouTube right now, broadcasting and talking to you about building financial literacy and wealth. Kind of cool, right? So then we think about DoubleClick, which is now known as Google Ads and also Google AdSense. When we think about Motorola, I mean, think about the company that was a telecommunications company, but think about how it's also helped shape the future of them and making Google Pixel devices. I mean, from 2012 to 2020, just 8 years later, the future was bright for them to literally build out their own cell phones, their own tablets and Chromebooks by pretty much some of those acquisitions in which that they got through the Motorola business. When you think about Nest, think about now bringing in smart devices, which again, we're not going to build that as a spoiler alert. We're just going to literally just put that there on your peer view, and we'll come back to that. And then we have Looker, data analytics. I mean, Google Analytics, anybody? 2019, improving those things. And then on top of that, when you search, now it literally follows you and them able to grab data about each and every single person that's within the Google ecosystem. I mean, just think about it. For those who think that they're on Apple services, ask yourself this. If you have an Apple iPhone, how many of you signed in with a Gmail address? All right, so then let's look at Apple. Now, Apple's had some pretty interesting acquisitions, but let's go all the way back to 1996. In 1996, they acquired a company called Next. Now, if anybody knows the history of Apple, this was actually the acquisition that actually brought back Steve Jobs. And then from that acquisition, since it was a software development company, the cool part about it is a few years later, we were introduced to iOS, the first iPhone, which completely changed the landscape of the game. And then what followed next was the iPad and so many other devices. What also brought forth was Mac OS in its early day, not what we know of today, but really what you see today is really built off of the framework of what Apple had built prior. So then when we go to Anabit, flash memory controller design in 2011, notice with most MacBooks today, they're mostly made out of flash memory. Get it? If you think about it, it's kind of cool because now it's like you don't have to worry about replacing hard drives and everything else. It's literally just soldered onto the board. That's flash memory. When we think about Beats Electronics, don't be surprised that tomorrow, spoiler, or not tomorrow, but October 13th, spoiler alert, that essentially that they move on from the Beats brand or move on from Beats and really make it the next iteration in over-the-ear headphones, like, for example, the AirPods, except in a Bose form. When we think about Shazam music delivery app or discovery app, I mean, think about how we're able to use Shazam in not only just music, but also in recognizing commercials and also being able to recognize people. When we think about also this most recent acquisition, which is Dialog Semiconductor, I mean, this really just set the whole stage for Apple when it comes to creating its own SoC chip. Now we're talking about Apple now literally providing its own chip and no longer needing Intel. I mean, that's really just looking into it from the future, just from a couple of acquisitions. Now let's go on to the very last one, which is Facebook. In 2012, Facebook acquired Instagram for about $1 billion. Instagram back then versus Instagram today, where now you have folks that are content creators and everything else, where they make their living through Instagram. When you think about Onavo, mobile web analytics, I mean, when you think about it, the cool thing about this whole platform is it's what we know of Facebook analytics and Instagram analytics today. When we look at LiveRail, technology services for online video advertising, I mean, think about the video ads that go through Instagram, Facebook's main platform, and in WhatsApp. When we think about Oculus, we're talking about, and I challenge anybody to go look at I think it was the interview with Mark Zuckerberg and MKBHD, where Mark Zuckerberg was talking about moving into hologram technology by using, say, for example, building off of the Oculus platform. I mean, if you really think about it, the company that should have flourished during COVID-19, which was kind of a little bit like, what happened, was Facebook, especially with their Oculus devices. You know, they should have completely flourished because that would have completely changed the game of what we know about the office, about the office space from home, but making sure that you can still be connected to the folks at work as if it's seamless and as if they're right there in your own home. And then when we think about WhatsApp in 2014, see, all these transactions, by the way, took place in the same year, so they got busy. But if you think about it, it's a cross-platform messaging and voice over IP service. Now, if you think about it, that puts it into places in which that Facebook's main platform and Instagram are not very prevalent, but it allows other people to be able to communicate from around the world without having to receive massive hits from, say, for example, their mobile carriers. That's huge, because now you just made the world a lot smaller for people to be able to connect with each other. Now, what Facebook is looking to do is they're trying to merge Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp all together as one platform for messaging. Now you just built something that is truly communicative. It'd be interesting if that happened.
Mark.
Yes.
I have a question.
Hit me.
Okay, so as a VC, especially one with your finger on the pulse of startups, and given what like innovation breadcrumbs, so to speak, that these 5 companies have left, what do you see is next for these companies? As far as like, you don't have to say like specific startups, but just given what we've seen, where would be the likely place they would go next?
For Apple, I definitely believe that it's going to be where they have to move away from the iPhone.
Okay.
They're looking into things of using AI. They're definitely focused within health. That's definitely their play, where if you focus on most of their devices, they're all focused around health and obtaining information. Like if you think about what they're silently doing with the AirPods as it pertains to the decibels and the decibel noise, when you think about all the data that the Apple Watch collects, when you think about also other things that are able to connect to the iPhone and also being able to collect like Apple Health, where it's able to actually collect your health records through the app if you allow it to. And then on top of that, it also allows for like you to take part in health studies just through the Apple Health app. That's going to be a major play for them. I think that they're also taking the play of going beyond iPhone and thinking about wearable devices that are more ubiquitous. Like, for example, watch, ears. So, you know, collection of data, collection of sound, and a little bit of movement. I think the very next thing is vision, where they're definitely looking to go into the glasses perspective and bringing data into that forefront. I think that that's going to be a huge play for Apple. I think that they're also looking at, say, for example, things within other devices like your home, schools. I mean, and then on top of that, you know, auto.
Now, for the vision piece, like, what does that application look like? I mean, what do you?
I think it would use augmented reality. It's going to use augmented reality for sure because they're very heavy, hence their AR kit, and they've been using that through Apple iPhone and tablet devices to really perfect that technology, and then later to bring it into the glasses forefront of things using what they call AR kit. And then on top of that, I mean, I think that the beautiful thing is they're moving devices away from having to need the iPhone. That's the easiest way that we could see it looking into the future. The Apple Watch itself doesn't require in specific iPhone devices or Apple Watch devices, they don't require an iPhone to be connected. They don't require any phone to be connected. There is devices within the Apple Watch ecosystem where it literally just uses the cellular network. When we think about the AirPods, they just recently released an update with iOS 14, where it's so interconnected that it immediately switches from one device to the other seamlessly.
I experience that on a daily.
And so when we think about eyes, I mean, the eyes, like somebody says, are the window to a person's soul. When you think about the world in which that we see, that just takes it to a whole nother level. I mean, a completely new level. Now, of course, this technology is going to be in its infancy, but I think that if anybody could pull it off, I think the two people that could pull it off are Apple and Facebook. I think that when we look at Google, based upon the acquisitions, and then also based upon what they're doing internally with those acquisitions, they're being smart about it. When we look at Microsoft, they're getting more so into they've always been within the productivity space. Their definite focus is to go for the cloud and using AI technology through the cloud to be able to process things. So where it collects large amounts of data, but is able to make seamless decisions that are calculated. That's huge, which is going to lead me into my next wave when we think about it. But I mean, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, their play is all in the cloud. It's all dedicated towards the cloud. Now each of them will specialize into something different. Mm-hmm. Like Amazon is definitely want to rule. They want to rule everything as it pertains to home and shopping. So home and retail, pretty much commons. Mm-hmm. It's very quite evident. Now it's not to say that they can't provide other things like entertainment, but that's not going to be really their forte. When I look at a Microsoft, like I said, theirs is all about productivity and AI computation. When we look at Google, here's the thing about Google. Google acquired a lot of companies over its lineage. And then when it became Alphabet, it just took a lot of those companies that were within its portfolio, and thus Alphabet, all the companies from A to Z. Now, we're going to get into a little bit more of a deep dive on this one a little bit later to discuss. But for the most part, I think it's kind of interesting to see where Google is going to play this one, because they got a lot of companies, but where they struggle is really figuring out how to monetize them well.
So I'm asking you these questions because I know, cousins would want to know that. And then also, as we look forward to the next or this final quad witching for December,
yep.
How should the cousins be looking at this? Because we have XLK, which has exposure to
Apple, Microsoft,
right? And then we have XLY XLY with exposure to Amazon,
and then XLC is Facebook,
right? So, any insight into how they should be looking at that as far as placing their bets?
Well, I mean, yeah. So, like I said, XLC has a lot of great companies in there. The only problem is that you have your two best companies are also your two companies that are also your heaviest risk. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at Facebook, I mean, there's definitely issues as it pertains to their privacy and security, as well as just, how is it that people communicate. When we look at Google, it's more so in the sense that they're a solid company that has used a lot of data, but they just don't know how to monetize it in the sense of providing consumers really what they want. Mm-hmm. It kind of is like, okay, hey, we're going to provide you tools, and then let's see if you like it.
Right. And then oh, you didn't like it? We're shutting it down. Next.
Right. And it's like, and the reason why I say that is because look at how many times Google has created a video chat platform that just, we see the lineage of iterations that Google has done, but it hasn't quite clicked. And then thus, if Google really had it right, then Zoom wouldn't exist. So that's what I mean by and we may have to bring somebody in from Google for them to maybe possibly speak on it.
That could be arranged.
Just saying. But, I don't want to throw too much shade at the company. When I look at Amazon, their future is bright. When I look at Apple and Microsoft, they're like the two oldest companies. Mm-hmm. And they're like kind of like steadily having to figure out how to reinvent themselves so that way they can be ready for the next wave or the next generation. Mm-hmm. And to a certain degree, it's like at one point in time, Microsoft was struggling. I think that we're seeing some of that happening with Apple right now. Mm-hmm. It's just that both companies have, like, Microsoft has found new life with Satya Nadella and what he's brought to Microsoft outside of the Steve Ballmer days. Mm-hmm. And then we have Apple with Tim Cook, who's not an innovator. He's an amazing CEO and former CFO, and who knows how to keep a business running, but at the same token is still struggling to innovate. Like, if this were during a Steve Jobs day, then, you know, Steve Jobs always said innovation is what separates leader from follower. Mm. We're kind of like now at that precipice of asking, okay, well, what is Apple innovating that separates it from the rest? And I think that Apple really needs to be able to do that. And I think that they will over a period of time. And I think that they need to do that in order to make, one, their valuations remain believable, and then two, for investors to still be interested in wanting to invest. I mean, it's still a safe play, but at the same token, you know, people love Apple because of the fact of what it does. It innovates well. And then on top of that, I mean, no matter what device that comes out, they always said, is this the Apple killer, or is this the iPhone killer, or the iPad killer? Well, what's the next thing?
I definitely think their move away from hardware and moving more into services and things of that nature, and wearables and personal tech is definitely like where they can innovate. But mm-hmm. I feel like they're not, it almost feels like it's in slow motion. Like they're kind of just, instead of just boom, it's Apple, we're here, you know, they're not.
But I mean, again, there's always healthcare. I mean, healthcare is a major industry that definitely needs some significant disruption.
Yeah.
And I think if anybody can do it, I think it's definitely Apple. So.
An apple a day. That's what they say.
Yeah, supposedly. All right. So are we ready for the next thing?
Yep.
All right, y'all. So y'all know me. I like to think towards the future, and my goal is that I want to get each and every single one of you to start doing the same thing, where each and every single one of us start looking towards not what's in front of us, but what's well ahead of us. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at was an industry that is definitely heavily wrapped within AI, but it kind of like, this will kind of like tie it in to merge everybody together. And understanding, hold on a second, because I want to make sure that, you know, I want to make sure that my life is right.
Get your life right.
I definitely want to make sure that my life is right over here. Okay, there we go. All right, so everybody's able to see this, no issues with, you know, all that.
You can see it.
Okay. So the reason why I say this is because I want everybody to think about it like this. And this is a spoiler alert. I mean, this episode wouldn't be a spoiler unless we actually showed it to you. So what if I was to tell you that the future that you guys think that is so far away is actually already right here in front of you? That would be crazy, right? Like, you know, Mark, how is it possible that the future is already here when there's so many more strides in which that we can do? And to a certain degree, you're right. There's still much more innovation and iterations that will take place. But
was that an E flat?
I don't know what it was, but, you know, let's just say that it's already here. The future is already here now. And here's why. If you look at this image, it doesn't really look that far away from what current cities and what current life looks like now. Of course, now we can't really fully see it now because of the fact that we're going through COVID. But I just want to give you a little sneak peek. So for those of you that are in 2-year contracts of positions, or if you're invested into stock for the long term, well, then buckle up, because you're getting ready to see some of this stuff come into the forefront a lot sooner than what you think it is. And many of you are going to realize that it was already here in the first place. So this network, as what you see, this network of connected devices gathers vast amounts of data about our online activities. So when you think about it, there's a billboard which collects data. There's lights, but you know what? We're just going to go for it. We're just going to get back into it. So Internet of Things, right? Which is powered by artificial intelligence, is written on three key fundamentals: artificial intelligence, networks, aka communications, and big data. Now, in this world, we're talking about AI, 5G, which is fast, and then big data. So when we think about AI, it's pretty much a programmable intelligence enabling devices to learn. We start off with machine learning, where you set an algorithm that in the beginning, it's pretty stupid. But then the more data that it collects, aka big data, and using great networks or better networks that are able to move the data fast, then AI is able to learn. And the more that it's able to learn, the more that it's able to improve and get better. So when we think about it, think back to the time when Google used to use its AI to start to recognize what was a dog and what was a cat. Now it understands the different types of species of a cat, the different type of species of a dog, and many different other things. It's now learning those things. When we think about 5G, and many of you are like, well, 5G is like this weird thing. What if I was to tell you that 5G, you've already experienced it? The only difference is that what you're looking at is 5G when it comes to, say, for example, cellular bands. Now, that's fair. That's going to be new for a lot of Americans and a lot of folks around the world. But let's say that you have a Wi-Fi network at home. Now you have a 2.5, you have a 2.4 gigahertz network, which allows you to extend for broader range. And then you have what is called 5 gigahertz, 5G, which gives you faster internet throughput, but at the same token, it's a shorter span. Many of you already have this within your households. For those of you that have dual band routers, which allows you to set up a 2.4 network and a 5 gigahertz network, then you've kind of had an idea of 5G. Now, the differentiation is that these networks and these carriers or communication services are going to have to put them around throughout the city in order for them to be able to access through broad ranges of people in high density areas. So then the data that it collects from numerous different internet connected sources that are too large for normal processing methods. So which means is it compresses the data and then sends it out, and then through neural networks, it's able to process the data. Hence the reason why you have smart streets. Notice like when you're sitting at a street kind of like starts to calculate how many people are, or how many cars are starting to load up. So that way it can increase it. So that way it can improve the flow of traffic. They once called that smart asphalt, but now they're using other things and using data to literally make the street smarter. But I don't want to get too further ahead of myself. So with these things merged together, you have what is called smart cities. Now there are 4 segments of artificial Internet of Things segments. The first thing is wearables, aka watches, AR, VR goggles, and wireless earbuds. Like for example, with Apple's AirPods, they're actually able to, their AirPods Pro, they're actually able to take into the fact of spatial sound, where it's able to consider exactly what's around you to give you an overall 360-degree experience as it pertains to audio. Don't be surprised if you see other carriers out there. Now let's look at the lineage of where we come from. Once upon a time, we had what was called inline headphones, which meant that you needed a line. And then we went from inline to Bluetooth. And then from Bluetooth, you were able to control things on your devices outside of just streaming and listening. So then you were able to control what your phone was doing. And then from there, you went from being able to control what was on your phone to then being able to talk to your phone and then be able to get data back and forth. That's the lineage of where we've come from. And now it's become so ubiquitous that everybody just believes it's standard. When we think about AR, VR, think about what it's going to do with spatial, where you're able to literally have spatial art galleries within your space and literally be able to see an artist's gallery within your own home. Or say, for example, take kids on a field trip without having to literally take them anywhere outside of the pure view of their room. When you think about VR in the sense that you can actually make real world experiences that are right there in front of you, we're already seeing these things now and they're only just getting better. When we look at smartwatches, look at the type of things that it's collecting. The Apple Watch now collects, say, for example, your blood oxygen levels. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for like folks that are in pregnancy. You know, you read blood oxygen levels. When you think about what's next to come, when we think about blood oxygen, what about if they started being able to collect things like, for example, sleep and using that towards sleep apnea? What if they started using other things like, for example, being able to check for also other early signs of diabetes or other things? That's just only part of the lineage, right? Or like, for example, it can also detect when you fall. Now, when we think about the next thing, it's the home. When we think about it, think about every single one of you that probably have an Alexa device or a Google Home device. And think about how it's able to collect data, not only just from what you give it, but also from your own devices. When we think about smart speakers, we think about how we're able to ask them questions and they're able to be able to process information for us. When we think about Internet of Things appliances, I mean, hell, Amazon came out with an Alexa microwave. When we think about our refrigerators and how much data that they collect, where they're able to start getting a sense of the type of food that you typically buy, it'll start making smart recommendations on saying, hey, you're running out of this. It's time to go get this. Add this to your shopping list. And then essentially send it to your phone, send it to your car. When we think about smart thermostats and how they're able to consistently get better over time with data, so that way your home becomes more energy efficient. Then we talk about cities. Think about smart energy grids. Look at what Tesla's doing in other places where their electricity was ridiculously high, and now they made it much cheaper. Think about smart streetlights, where it's like they learn how to conserve energy on their own without having to always be on. Think about smart public transportation, where essentially you could be seeing, say, for example, better routes. You can also be seeing, say, for example, less and less amounts of waiting time. And then if we really think further into the future, think about when the smart public transportation starts to drive itself. These things in which that people fear today will become the norm for the generations that follow. Then we think about industry. When we think about autonomous manufacturing robots, we're seeing that now. When we think about automated supply chain management, we're seeing that now. When we talk about predictive maintenance sensors, we're already seeing that now as well. So industries have already started to become smarter. Now their servicing and maintenance is more scheduled because of the fact that the data from autonomous machines are able to tell. When we think about automated supply chain management, look at what happens at an Amazon distribution center. Many of that is operated by robots. You know, it's still in its infancy, but these segments represent a direct impact in our daily lives. So here's the future. Is it slowing down? No. When we think about edge computing, right? Smart thermostats, smart appliances, those become home robots and autonomous vehicles. Does that sound familiar to anything that's happening now?
Yeah, I've seen some restaurants with robots.
I just saw a company release a video about a drone that like was able to detect an intruder, and that releases in 2021. I may drive a vehicle that also is able to, do some autonomous driving, and it's only getting better with software upgrades. So when we think about these things, edge computing is pretty much where data is processed by itself through the device. So the device doesn't really need anything. It's already smart itself, and it's able to process the information. Now, of course, it sends data back and forth through the cloud or through some type of network, but still, you kind of get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. When we think about voice AI, 1D, so pretty much 2 dimensions, which is smart speakers. We already see those now. Voice activated LCD displays, smart TVs. We see that. Mm-hmm. Now, when it says the future, natural language processing, e-payment voice authentication. We're already seeing that now. Like, think about how much like Siri recognizes your voice in comparison to recognizing somebody else's voice.
And Siri is kind of nosy, though. She's come up a couple of times. You remember?
Yeah, sometimes we just need to tell her to mind her own business.
Right.
But then when we think about the next thing, right? We think about vision AI, massive object detection. We're already seeing that now where devices can detect. If you have a Google device or if you have Android devices, and when you look at the camera, and iPhone does it too, where it's able to recognize things and be able to pull up data about that device. Mm-hmm. When we if you flash your phone at a painting, then it's able to tell you who painted it. If we look at 4K resolution, remember back in the days, just journey back with me when 1080p was the thing?
Yeah.
Now we're doing video analytics on the edge. And then when we think about it, super 8K resolution. I mean, how many of you have actually already have started hearing about 8K TVs? And now 4K TVs are now the norm. It's kind of weird when you run into somebody that has a 1080p TV. AI, Internet of Things, promises to radically transform how we interact with our homes, offices, and cities every day. Interesting thing, this presentation was put together by TSM, which is a major manufacturer for chips. Just wanted to put that in there for perspective.
Right.
So when we think about it, when you think about it, for those in whom which that are thinking okay, hey, Mark, okay, that makes sense, but bring it all back in perspective for me. For those in whom which that are let's say that I'll just be transparent. I'm trading Tesla. So I'm in a Tesla trade for January 2023 as well as September 2022. Now, if you think about it, the reason what makes me excited about this company is look at what it did a year ago. Mm-hmm. And then look at what it's done just this year alone. Look at the innovations in which that this company has brought just within 1 year. And it makes me super duper excited for what's going to happen next year and the year after. They're a company that's showing you that they're not stopping. Any of those 5 companies that I just mentioned, they're showing you signs that they're not stopping. They're moving forward. So when you think about it in perspective, where will these companies be in 1 year or 2 years from now? You're already seeing it now. You just have to start thinking about and asking yourself, what's the next iteration?
And where will it be?
Well, yeah. I mean, when we talk about think about how many autonomous companies there are when it comes to autonomous driving, right? You got Mobileye, that was a Jewish company that was bought by Intel. You've got NVIDIA Drive, you've got Tesla, you've got Uber, you've got Apple, and you got probably a few other players in there. Look at the strides in which that, that each and every single one of these companies is taking. Now, of course, there's a leader here. And also, let's not forget about Google. The only problem is they just can't get out of Arizona yet. But look at what they're doing. They're already testing technology. Look at what companies like Amazon are doing with drones. Amazon, Boeing, UPS, Walmart, FedEx. Look at what they're doing with drone technology. I mean, these things are happening now. Now, are they the norm yet? No. So when you ask yourself, is that where would you want your money to be? You want your money to be in the future. So when we say it's a spoiler alert, the win is already baked in, because once the innovation takes hold, and it's not even a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. When we talk about innovation that takes hold, you know what?
Take your well, you also need to take your sip too. Okay, Jay-Z. Hope. Y'all, Mark has been cutting up all day today, okay? All day.
Just saying, man. Just saying. It's the spoiler is already here. Mm-hmm. The spoiler is already baked in. Now that you're in these 2-year trades, it's now time to start thinking about what happens 3 years from now, 4 years from now. And that's why I always say, I'll go back to what we said from day one. Look at the company, look at their fundamentals. What are they doing? What are their competitors doing? How is the sector moving? So, for example, if it's a tech company, it's in the technology sector. If it's industrial, it's in the industrial sector, and so on and so on and so on. What's happening with the other players there? How are they all shaping up to start figuring out, because here's the funny thing. Just because you see one company doing one thing doesn't mean that there's other companies that are not following, and that there's also other companies that are not participating in the same process. Mm. It starts to show you kind of like an idea of where the overall market is going. And that's why we said you got to put it into perspective. You've got to put it into perspective. The spoiler is already built in.
Well, what's really dope too is that with the rolling fours, you can constantly be in the future. You know, like
100%.
Roll it, it's in the future. You have 2 years or however long your, contract is for. But this has been made so easy.
Can I actually like say something real quick?
Yeah.
If you're playing in the future, there's very little risk, right? Because essentially you're riding the wave based upon what you know that's already going to be happening. You're just waiting for it to happen. When you're playing in the present, though, and when you're only focused on the present, how does that feel?
Raggedy.
I'll put it to you like this. You think pennies, you get pennies. You think dollars, it's just different.
It's very different. But we like different, right, cousins?
100%. 100%.
Well.
Somebody asked, can IoT be hacked? Yes. Internet of Things can be hacked. Yes. At any point in time, yes, anything can be hacked. I mean, you're probably starting to see that some federal governments are being hacked because they haven't updated their technology. And I think that you're going to see that along with the process. But as things move forward, things get better. And that's just naturally the how things work. And like I said, if you focus on the small temporary moments, like you have to ask yourself this: will the world look exactly the same 2 years from now, the way it looks today? Like, just let that sink in for a second. Are these companies? Let's bring it back to your money, because we just gave you a lesson on what it looks like from the tech space. So I'm going to loop it all in. For those of you that work, or that are we're all alive. You learn something new every day. You learn something new every year. And if that is the case, are you the same person that you were last year? You may have the same name, but even then, you're not the same age that you were a year ago. And the goal is that you're steadily evolving. The only difference is that many of you, and let's just be real, many of you didn't even know that, say, for example, such a thing like the come up would have had such an impact on your life. But now that it has, I guarantee you see the future a lot more clear. I guarantee you that the world is a little bit more hopeful. I guarantee you that essentially you start to see things a lot differently, a lot clearer than what they used to be.
We need to sit.
Change is forever constant. There's a lot of folks out there that want to be involved in such a play. And just for something special for each and every single one of you that wanted to know, like, okay, hey, wait, why, Mark, 2-year contracts? The reason why I like trading options versus owning stock, and don't get it twisted, I actually own stock. But the reason why I like trading options more than I like owning stock is because there's just something dope about that. When you think about it, 10 to 15 years worth of sitting in a stock for a return looks a whole lot sweeter when you can score that in 2 years.
Demon time. That's what I like to call it. My whole account, all my accounts are on demon time. I told Aaron today, I was like, he's one of the cousins. I told him that, you know, I may buy shares when I walk away, but for right now, it's all about that demon time.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of folks are asking me, like, Mark, how is it that I calculate the profit and all this other stuff? I mean, when you think about it, like, let's put it into perspective. And a lot of folks are like talking about, well, you know, the election and all this other stuff. Okay. So Donald Trump has been in office for about to be 4 years. The market's gone up by, what is it, 45%. When Obama was in office, I think it was like 148 or 178 percentage return in the market. When you think about it, markets move on from folks in whom which that are in politics. Market doesn't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, or whatever you want to choose to be. It doesn't care. What matters is, does it make money? Do these companies make money? You know, that's what it cares about. Is there opportunity? So when you think about it, it's like a lot of folks get tied up into, and it's like, don't get so tied up into the everyday woes when you're playing long term. If I was you, you got, like, put it like this. When you know that your 2-year trade is already a spoiler alert, and you already know that it's a win, that's giving you a 2 years worth of or a year and a half worth of procrastination time to figure out what your next move is going to be. And the only way that you're going to figure out what your next move is, like, because here's the thing, the people who lose after they've had a win are the same folks who are not studying on the next one.
Say that one more time, Mark. Say that one more time.
The people who lose are the folks who take advantage of the first win, but never studied up for the next one. If you're studying up for the next one, so for example, you kind of understand where this story is going. We've kind of like that. I mean, honestly, there's no secret ingredient. There's no secret formula. You know, it's really in a sense of, like, think about it, like, use common sense. You've got a year to a year and a half to figure out what the next play is going to be. Because at the moment that one expires, there is no, what should I do now? What should I do next? You're operating off of a game plan, so you should already know what the next one is. And if you're really in tune to what's happening within the market and what's happening within the space, it makes it so much easier that you're just going from one transition to another. But when you don't, when you haven't done the work and when you haven't put in the work to study or to gain the knowledge, those who know what they're doing and that are taking the time to study, they don't have to look over the shoulder. But those in whom which they're not studying, they're nail biting every day that they see the market turn red.
Every day. Now, speaking of studying, someone asked about the negative performance calculations, and that actually was covered in some detail in a previous episode. So check the timestamps left by TiVo to find what that episode was, because I don't remember. It was probably last week. So for the person that asked that question about negative performance, look back at the previous videos and you will find it. Mm-hmm. We got a time check. So it's 7:07 right now.
Okay.
It's time to shut this thing down. We need some likes still. You have some time to like the video. And are we going to the after party?
I mean, I noticed that you turned off your disco ball, so I don't know.
Hey, that ain't nothing but, it's remote control. Yo.
I'll see y'all there.
Follow Mark on IG. I am Mark Monroe. I'll be in there in the comments at Jolyn GC, cutting up.
You know what would be dope if we actually did it from the Come Up series. So like next season, I'm actually going to start. I'm actually going to start doing it from the Come Up series, where we go live from the Come Up series.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
But I will say this: if the Lakers win tonight,
It was a close game, so we'll see.
you may see me. Are you watching it?
Nope.
Okay.
I got cousins that be letting me know.
Okay. If the Lakers win, you may see me right early in Bushy Tail. Maybe, talking to folks while the market is open live. You never know. But anyways, let's get over to this live.
Right. It's on IG, y'all. Go to IG, follow Mark's page at I am Mark Monroe.
Simple, right?
Right. On Instagram. That's where we're headed to. We got to hurry up because stuff is going on.
All right, y'all. Well, I guess it's time for the benediction.
Yeah.
Doors are open. Will you come? Will you come? Thank each and every single one of you for watching and enjoying. Definitely, if you like what you saw today, go ahead and hit the like button. We would greatly appreciate it because it lets us know exactly how well we're doing. But if we didn't do well, go ahead and put that in the comments and how we can do better. We are working on trying to figure out what this whole situation is going on about the ads that take place in the replays.
Yeah.
But just know this: whenever the ads are going through, you know that they're going towards some form of a nonprofit. So, there's that. But outside of that, I'll see you guys in the lounge sessions. And until then, I'm Mark Monroe.
I'm Jolyn GC, and the place to be.
And this was your come up. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Peace.